Hi everyone, welcome to October 2021's edition of Farsight's Human News, the remote viewing news forecast show that tells you what is going to happen, not what did happen. I'm Aziz Brown. So, let me begin by giving a major update on our past major mysteries project, Sodom and Gomorrah, that we published last month. Just a few days after we released the project in which we described how those towns were destroyed by a high-energy beam weapon that was fired by an extraterrestrial spaceship, a scientific report published in a very mainstream publication, Nature, published on the 20th of September 2021, detailed how a high-energy event essentially destroyed and melted the town that the researchers suggest may have been the biblical urban center of Sodom. The details of the scientific report amazingly match what our remote viewers described in our project. Now, the scientists in the Nature report speculate that the event was caused by a meteor that was exploded above the town, but this is just their way of coming up with something that is a plausible explanation. They are not willing to entertain that it was a high-tech energy attack from an ET spacecraft, so the exploding meteor idea seems to be a reasonable suggestion in their minds. But we can say that we have data collected by multiple remote viewers working under blind conditions that match the physical evidence on the ground as just now reported by these archaeologists, and our data also supports the idea of an ET spacecraft attack, which, from our perspective, seems much more likely than an exploding meteor that leaves no crater or any other obvious evidence of its existence. So, you can decide for yourself what you think actually happened here. But I do warn you to be wary of anything related to potential UFO topics coming out of the mainstream. Scientists who are not willing to entertain all the possibilities are not thinking scientifically. Anyone who bans certain ideas cannot be expected to figure out complex things. The mainstream supports a religion that promotes the impossibility of ET life interacting with humanity. But since you are open-minded enough to be listening to us today, you don't need to be so blindsided. You have the upper hand. Also, I can now announce our next major mysteries project. Hold on to your seats. Our next major mysteries project will be released on October 15th on Farsight.com, and it is titled Lucifer. You heard that correctly. You see, the Bible and ancient legends talk about Lucifer as an angel who went bad. Well, it turns out that he was a real person, a subject, and he did stuff. And we went into his mind, and we also went into the mind of his greatest opponent. And, honestly, friends, you really want to see this one. Lucifer, October 15th. Now understand that quality is the only thing that matters here at Farsight. So, sometimes our projects are released a day or so late as we are working on these final edits. So we will always aim for the 15th every month. But if we are a day or two late, please be patient. It will come out in the middle of October, only at farsightprime.com. And it is, well, it's more than amazing. It is the true story of Lucifer. Also, let me give you an update on some of the changes that are happening to our video productions. ERV is normally known as an abbreviation for extended remote viewing. This has been done for a long time in various circles, and the normal procedures for ERV are to cover the eyes, lie down in a dimly lit setting, sometimes listening to certain sounds or calming music, and then to achieve what is called a hypnagogic state, which is the delicate state between sleep and being awake. Then, the subject attempts to perceive the target as is done with remote viewing. However, we here at Farsight see things differently. You see, we have found that whenever you change anything at all with the environment in which the remote viewers are doing their sessions, you change a layer of consciousness in which the target is being perceived. For example, when meditating, changing the mantra changes the flavor of consciousness that is obtained when meditating. Similarly, sitting at a desk in an isolated setting after meditating produces a certain entry into a perceptual state such that a target is perceived in a certain way. So, what we have been experimenting with is the idea that ERV, or extended remote viewing, as it has traditionally been done, is not actually doing anything special to perceive the target. It is not removing any physical stimuli that is doing the job. Rather, what the traditional approach is doing is actually changing the environment of the perceiver, and that change change produces a change in the way the target is perceived. It is the changing of the environment and then attempting to perceive something psychically that is the key here. Again, change the environment of the perceiver, and you will get some variation in the perceptions obtained. And you are still remote viewing the same place. It is just that you are looking at the target from a different perspective. You might consider it comparable to being in the same building, but you just took the elevator to a different floor. Here is another example. One of the planned military uses of remote viewing was originally intended for its use in battlefield conditions where there is noise and distractions, and there are some indications that the military may still be exploring variations in this potential application. Well, here at Farsight, we have been developing a new approach to changing the environment of the perceiver, and we are trying to figure out new ways to combine these changes with normal approaches that we continue to do. For example, our remote viewers always meditate before each remote viewing session. Always, no exceptions. Then they do their sessions and write all of their perceptions down on an iPad. We rarely use paper for these sessions nowadays. However, when we occasionally do use paper for our remote viewing sessions, we notice that this changes the environment of the viewer as well, and our viewers have then obtained perceptions that have slightly different flavors to them. Change anything at all, including the way you write things down, and the layer of consciousness that is accessed with remote viewing changes. So, we are changing ERV to mean what we think it really does mean, which is not necessarily extended remote viewing, but rather environmental remote viewing. Change something in the environment of the remote viewer and something will change in the nature of the consciousness that affects the perceptions. So, ERV at Farsight means environmental remote viewing, and vocabulary is important. So we have been diving into this type of research a lot with respect to changes in the remote viewing environment, and you are going to see all sorts of experiments in our presentations, especially with these mysteries presentations. These changes will be combined with our traditional approaches for remote viewing, not instead of. For example, in addition to our paper or iPad sessions, then you will see our lightboard presentations, and then you will see something like this mixed in.
It's like he doesn't even have a body.
So stay tuned and watch our next Mysteries project, Lucifer, to get an idea of what is coming big time in the near future at Farsight in our Mysteries projects. Friends, come along with us as we explore consciousness in new and innovative ways. So often we have heard others disparage new approaches to remote viewing. So often we have heard things like Ingo Swann would be turning in his grave, or this isn't how the military did it in the unit, or even things like to do remote viewing you must use a certain type of fan fold paper, or you should not combine the use of remote viewing with extraterrestrial targets, and on goes the list of intellectually rigid limitations. Let us be clear, Farsight is known for pushing the boundaries of experimentation with remote viewing. That is what we do. We push past existing boundaries into new realms while always keeping an eye on the science, doing our sessions blind, and always trying to blend verifiable elements with the unknowns of our project. For example, when we study the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza, the verifiable element is the pyramid itself and its environment. Then we get the new elements involving unknowns as well, and we blend the verifiable elements with the new information involving those unknowns. So keeping it scientific is a Farsight constant, but pushing past the unknowns is also a Farsight constant. ERV, Environmental Remote Viewing, starting in mid-October with our Lucifer project, and then also in future Mysteries projects, streamed at farsightprime.com. Look for it. Also, for those of you who want to personalize instruction in remote viewing, PrinCess Jeaneé and Trudy Benjamin are teaching remote viewing both individually and in groups. Our methods are sufficiently complex that we use pre-printed templates for our sessions, and PrinCess and Trudy can work with you individually or in groups as you learn to use these methods as well. Our approaches address a wide range of applications that we do here at Farsight, including investment evaluations and forecasting. We do a lot of stuff that nobody else does. For those who are interested, Princess and Trudy will show you how to do what we do. Be patient in learning any of our methods. Nothing we do was learned in a day. Also, understand that when Princess or Trudy teach remote viewing, no one at Farsight gets any financial benefit from this. Princess and Trudy do this entirely on their own. Remember, also, that there is a large array of instructional videos available at farsightprime.com. Also, we continue to publish our SECO forecasts, which are contemporary investigations of cryptocurrency opportunities. As you can surmise, these forecasts involve cryptocurrencies and the forecasts are for 5 years. You can find out information about those forecasts on our website. Also, we have published preliminary results for our SECO forecasts, which to date appear to be highly promising. You can also find these preliminary results on our website, and again, as with all of our economic forecasts of any type, we do this for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nonetheless, we feel that as we continue to do this, it will become increasingly difficult for people to doubt the reality of remote viewing. Also, we can use your help if you share our YouTube content with your friends. Be sure to like our videos, but really try to click on the share button and send our content to your friends. Word of mouth has always been the best way to spread our really new ideas, and relying on institutions to make any fundamental changes in this world is almost a contradiction in terms. Real change always happens from the actions of people, not institutions. Institutions typically resist change. They always have and they always will. Since all of you are people, help us make a change happen. It's a people thing. Moving on, how do you hear about us and all of our activities that we do at Farsight so that you can participate and get the latest when they happen, including our live streams? To start with, we use our email list and YouTube to make our major event announcements. So there are 2 things you need to do. First, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to click the notifications bell that appears after you subscribe. That is the only way that YouTube will notify you about our new events, especially our live stream events. Just subscribing doesn't really do anything. The notification bell is the important part, but that only notifies you of things that we released on YouTube. To be notified about the things that we released on farsightprime.com, which you can watch using our Apple or Android apps on the web and on your home TV, you need to subscribe to our free email newsletter found on our website at farsight.org. You can also allow our apps to notify you of our new releases on farsightprime.com. Be sure to do all 3 things. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Farsight, and remember to click the notifications bell, and then subscribe to our free email newsletter that you can find on our website. And finally, go to the settings of our app and allow it to give you notifications of our new releases on farsightprime.com. The links for YouTube and our newsletter are in the description area below this video as well, and the app is, well, it's on your phone. Those are how we announce what we do. We never send out spam, and we never give out our subscriber lists to anyone else for any other purposes. Now, on to human news. Let's start by summarizing what happened last month with our September Human News program. We had a great month. In September, one of our biggest stories was an eruption of a volcano on the island of La Palma in the Spanish Canary Islands. Starting on the 19th of September 2021, a huge eruption occurred that sent large plumes of gas upward, and an enormous flow of lava went right through a populated area, destroying hundreds of buildings. The ash cloud extended more than 4,500 meters high, which is 14,760 feet. Moreover, a huge quantity of toxic sulfur dioxide was spewed into the air. Well, that event closely parallels the remote viewing sessions done by PrinCess Jeaneé and Kahmia Dunson for September, especially noting the atmospherics of that event. Now, my own session was quite interesting from a different perspective. On August 29th, the United States executed a drone strike in Afghanistan in an attempt to kill what the military thought was a terrorist planning to attack U.S. interests during the evacuation from Kabul. However, the big news actually happened on September 10th, when the New York Times published the results of a study indicating that the drone strike in a dense residential area of Kabul did not kill a terrorist at all, but rather 10 civilians, including 7 children. Moreover, the subject that the military thought was a terrorist was actually a commercial driver named Zamari Ahmadi, who worked as a longtime driver for a U.S. aid group. During that day, he was driving people to work and loading jugs of water onto his car. The US military later admitted that the drone strike was a mistake. So while the drone strike actually happened on the 29th of August, the big news of the event actually happened on the 10th of September, and my data for that news event very closely matched what actually happened, including descriptions of the people living in that area. Finally, Intysam reported on a weather-related water event that involved a ship that was seriously damaged. Well, Intysam Session was done on the 15th of August, and the big event involving water and violent weather started on the 29th of August when Hurricane Ida made landfall in Louisiana. It was a Category 4 hurricane, and the only hurricane more damaging than that in Louisiana was Hurricane Katrina. There were 15 known major shipwrecks or ship groundings that were caused by Hurricane Ida. So while the landfall of Hurricane Ida was on the 29th of August, the news stories of that hurricane extended well into the early days of September, and Intysam Session closely matched the violent nature of that event. Now, let's move on to this month's human news forecast for October 2021. Remember, we could always be wrong, and all remote viewing must be seen as an experiment, not a certainty. But look at the data for yourself, make your own decisions, and then let's watch this month roll out and see what actually happens. We have 5 remote viewers who are participating in this month's project: Kahmia, Dunson, PrinCess Jeaneé, Trudy Benjamin, Intysam, and myself. These reports are amazing to watch, and it is best if you just watch them without me trying to explain them in advance. So, let's begin. I will return after all the reports are presented to help pull everything together.
For my first visual, I have this dome-like structure. It has a rounded top to it, but kind of a square base. This structure kind of sits off to the side a little bit. So it's kind of like this, like a square base like that, okay, like that. It's giving very big, grand, almost like a church or like a government building, something like that, a large building. I do see other scattered structures kind of over here, like back here a little bit. And then just overall the background and the backdrop just feels very level topography for the most part. I do see some sort of man-made land here, like sidewalks or streetways. There are objects over here, subjects over here, a lot of subjects on the base surface outside of these structures, kind of just moving about. It feels very busy here. It feels like it's almost a large city or something where, just a lot of people congregate. And so from there, focusing in on this, looking for the target event, it does feel like it's centrally located inside of this larger structure. Almost like, yes, there's a lot going on out here in the sense that this is a large city and there's just a lot of man-made extra stuff going on. But something about this structure feels different. There are subjects inside this structure too, a lot of them. And it just feels like they're all moving about, but somewhere else inside this structure, it feels like there's something almost hidden here. It feels like there's this hidden space or room kind of inside this structure. And inside that room, there's not that many subjects. There's very few subjects. And it does feel like there's a main subject here. This subject feels kind of older, and it feels like they have these what's the word I want to use? There's a subject here that feels like they have this unnecessary amount of authority. Okay, so this subject feels male, this subject feels tall, this subject feels not necessarily lean, very average, I guess you would say. And they have this shorter, darker, dark brown, black hair. This subject is inside the structure in this room right here. And I want to say that the room, again, it feels like it's either underground or very well hidden inside this structure. This subject also has like a tan skin tone, not like too pale, but very much so like almost like a summer tan skin tone. And then this subject also feels slightly off to me, like they feel like they are, like they have bad intentions, let's just say that. They don't feel like a nice person. They feel like ulterior motives, just weird and creepy, okay? The subject feels weird and slightly creepy. But it does feel like they have like this, again, amount of authority that can't anyone deny, okay? Like that guy runs this. I want to call it an operation because it just feels so hush-hush, but he runs it. For my second visual, I do have this big, like, dark room, okay? And it looks dark, and I will say that there's, like, this faint light here, okay? Faint light shining from, like, the top. Okay, so imagine, like, you know, a light comes down, very dim lights, but the rest of this room is super dark. I do see these, like, boxes almost in this room, and they look, you know, like they're in a row, like that, right? But I see these blobs inside of these boxes, and honestly I can't really make out the shape of what they are, okay? But let's just, like, it looks like this. And I do mean like almost like they're shadows or black, dark, just things. Probing into them, they feel soft, they feel natural, they feel like subjects. And so what I'm getting here is that in this dark room, there are subjects in boxes. Now, these subjects feel like they're very naive, and like they don't even know what, like they're completely lost in the sauce, okay? They feel like they are almost like children, almost how children, you know, they can't really tell what's going on, but they see it. These subjects are obviously witnessing what's happening, but it's like they cannot really comprehend it. And I'm getting these feelings of like being scared, being nervous, feeling trapped, feeling lost, feeling secluded, like they've been taken away from wherever they came from, stolen and put into these boxes in this structure here. Another thing I'm going to say about this whole room is that it genuinely makes me feel sick to my stomach, okay? Like, it's disgusting in here. Like, it makes me want to make, like, the worst faces and just be like, ew. Whatever's happening in here is almost, like, I want to say it's inhumane and, like, stuff that a person in their right mind could never do. And it just feels really dark and twisted. So this main subject here, again, I can't really make out a face either. I just see this shadow of a person, but I can tell, you know, just how they look. I mean, I can just tell how they're shaped and stuff. But that male subject is here as well. He's inside of this room. He's not the only, you know, I'm gonna call him the adult male because these do feel like almost like they're children, but the one that's the most sane and knows like what's going on here, he's in here. There's a couple other subjects in here. Maybe they're just like his side guys or something, but they feel like, you know, they have an idea of what they're doing down here, why these subjects are down here, and overall, it's just giving me like. It's giving like kidnapping vibes. It's giving just stolen people and hidden away. I don't know if they have information or what, but it just feels like they're in these boxes, and these are like not the only people who know, but these are the main people who come in and out of this room and interact with these subjects in this room downstairs. Another thing about what's happening here, I get this feeling like these subjects are tortured and neglected, almost, like, I don't want to call it animal abuse, but, when you, like, neglect your pets and stuff like that, like, these people feel neglected, like they were put in this box and just left there and, checked up on every once in a while, but for the most part, they are not really cared for, and they're just sitting in these cages almost. Again, I just cannot help but feel so sick to my stomach. Like, it's almost like I don't want to believe what I see and what I'm witnessing. It does feel very twisted and dark and sinister. Overall, again, just like outside of this, the overall area does feel like a city. There's like the flat terrain in the background for the most part. This building just feels so big that it does feel like it's either government ran, church ran, something like that. A very grand building that you wouldn't think has like rooms located that are secret, and with subjects inside them. And these subjects on the base surface, it doesn't really feel like any of them know what's going on here. They genuinely feel like they're just walking around, going about their day, and these subjects over here are literally crying for help. They feel like they are defeated. Lastly, just trying to figure out why this is happening. It really feels like it's happening because these subjects here are twisted, dark, sinister subjects. It's literally because they're deranged, and I'm going to say deranged because someone in their right mind could never, and it feels like in their mind they are seeing what's happening and they're like, yeah, no, this is exactly what I want to see, this is exactly what I want to happen, and you just don't, like, how do you think that way? No. And it's really all coming from this main subject here. Of course, it seems like it's a hush-hush network that, like, a lot of people kind of know about it. Not just these three, but subjects everywhere kind of know about it. But it's not, like, known. It's almost like a secret society type thing, like a secret thing. And so it's almost like, I don't know how else to describe it, y'all, but if you could just see a picture and, you see what is shown to you, and then you put on special glasses, and all of a sudden things that weren't there are there because you can see it now. Like, that's what this is. Nobody who's an average person knows anything about what this is, but it's a thing, and it feels like it starts from a subject who is deranged and is almost disconnected from reality to the point where they believe that what they're doing is either good for them or good for the society or the group that they're a part of. They don't give two nothings about these subjects in these boxes. They care about themselves and what these subjects give to them, okay? And I feel like what they're getting from these subjects is some sort of power and some sort of advancement, but I can't really tell. It's just they feel very content and happy with themselves that these subjects are here and that they have control over this situation. So yeah, overall it's just a regular city, some big building with a room in it that seems very hush. And this room does feel like it's like down a very narrow hallway. So I do see like this very narrow hallway, right? Like that, but then it stops and there's a door here, like this. Okay, this is the hallway. These are walls, okay, this is the floor. But at the very end of this narrow hallway, there's this door. This door is this room, and it's almost like you can't find this door unless you're taken to it. But yeah, overall, just people in cages, people with some sort of authority who are literally allowed to just do this, and they're neglected, they're almost abused. I do feel like some subjects here don't make it, they don't survive. Although these subjects in these boxes feel alive, I do get this feeling that there's some subjects that just don't make it out alive.
Got natural land, man-made land, and mountains or steep peaks, something very rocky and what appears to be very cold or something specifically cool. And it has a chill to it. Got smoke and atmospherics, mountains or structures made of natural material, foliage, natural smells, but also smells like ice. Don't ask me what ice smells like. I think you get it. It smells cold. Like when you breathe in coldness, the smell that it has. I've got this like extremely rocky terrain that's here, large out. Imagine what like mountains or Grand Canyon-esque, but not summery and stuff here. And then there's something, central that's here that I'm seeing. It looks like energetics. This is a something that's there, natural land, man-made land, all around. Very irregular, but there's also some level spaces. There are structures all around. The land is vast. I'm deducting a ship and a boat. I'm seeing a structure near, in, or on water. And then I'm seeing this swirling effect. This swirling like situation. I have this land here, and they have these structures, these structures on the top of it, mountains, some in my forefront here, and then this object or structure that has this hourglass-like shape with foliage on either side of it. There's a lot of movement here, and I have a peaked structure that seems rather important. Something is definitely going on with this particular structure. There's a lot of cloud dynamics and clouds, or cloudy, or a something that's casting. I'm seeing the color red, seeing rocks or stone, and smells of heat. So I'm smelling heat and ice. That is unique. Smells of heat. I don't know what I'm seeing here, but there is this V. And then there's these things right here. It could possibly be two, the way there's a valley and then there's like hills here. Not quite sure, but I'm seeing this shape. Let me zoom out. Yeah, I'm seeing this shape where the two levels meet, and then there's two peak situations beyond it, between it, in the middle. A lot of movement, sloping downward movement and across. Loud sounds, rolling sounds I have here. It's warm or moderate, but there's a cold situation. There are things going on both on and off the base surface. Some foliage here. And again, like I said, ice maybe. have this rocky and dry and wetness going on. Something this sticky, slick, wet, rocky, clear, but also black. I'm seeing smooth. All these textures are here. There is some life here. I definitely see mountainous and peaked environment with city-like situation or structures here. Land all around. Something here reminds me of a glacier or a snowstorm. I'm deducting these two. There's, yes, this healed land. And then there's this giant swirling effect here in the middle that's very prominent. Very prominent amongst other structures or other pieces of land that are raised. As I move in time to about 48 hours before, because I'm trying to get the gist of what's happening here. Something is happening. As I moved in time, about 48 hours before, it's brighter. It's warm, dry land. And then continue to go back 48 hours forward in time. And it's very similar to my original, where I was with the cloud dynamics and the fog or smoke, the white, the coolness, the cold. In the center of my target, there's this cold downward movement. What looks to be like iced land, iced roads, snow, white blanket everywhere. There's like white everywhere. People seem to be stuck and in shock. It doesn't seem to be a general characteristic of this particular location. Subjects of this place feel or seem to be ill-prepared and confused, and some get hurt. There are some damages done to the space here. It's like some really wonky weather going on. Subjects are scared. They seem to be in a panic. The city or town is heavily impacted by what is shifting the atmosphere. It's so different and incorrect, not right for where we are. And something feels very off. So like a lot happening in different places that should be warm or cold, should be warm. Places that should be warm are cold. Places that should be cold are warm. After the deduction of a snowstorm in Cali, and I have this deduction of Revelations in the Bible. Hopefully neither, because both of those would suck. That's all I got, is this giant, drastic change and shift in the atmosphere in a place that this doesn't happen, and it heavily impacts the people here that live here in this place, in this space. It is cold.
What I have for this target is a primary male subject. This male subject has really black hair, and I sense he's wearing something on his head. I also notice that the subject is a bit irritated. He's trying to get inside of a base surface structure. But he's not allowed to go inside. I continue to sense that this entire structure on the base surface is surrounded by a crowd of subjects. There's a focus gathering around this structure, and these subjects really want to go inside, but they cannot go inside. I visualize a lot of arguing and yelling, and I don't sense that much of these people know each other. I just sense that there's someone telling them that they can't go inside of this structure. I keep seeing people wearing the color white. They're all trying to go inside of an entrance. There's people blocking the entrance to this location. And there's a crowd of subjects in the front of the entrance. And there's a crowd of subjects on the inside of this location as well. But I don't visualize that there's any negative intent from this primary subject. He actually has some nice intentions. The reason why he wants to even go inside of this location is very personal. He doesn't really have any negative reason to go inside. But the people blocking him from going inside of this location are just trying to protect the area. It's like this location wants less people inside, even though there's usually a lot more people. So these groups of subjects, Group A, where this subject comes from, they're pretty mad. And they have a good reason for wanting to be inside of this location. I continuously sense that the activity and movement on the inside of this location is a lot of jumping and moving around. But I sense that these subjects can't stay here. These subjects are not allowed to go inside of here. And he's one of them. I don't know, it's like a life or death situation where everybody's arguing here and they're fighting and they're trying to go inside and they're arguing and fighting and trying to go inside. But the reason why these people are blocking him from going inside is because of the life or death situation. I'm also noticing that he has a lot of pain in his head, and that's the reason why he wants to go inside of this environment where this structure is. And the pain in his head is the reason for him wanting to personally be in this location or in this environment. This location has a very hot temperature. The subject that I'm probing feels very alone in a crowd of subjects. He feels like the arguing and is probably going to start a fight, and this location's just not very safe for him to be in anyways. He wants to be there, but it's not safe for him to be. And all these subjects have to leave. They're not allowed to go inside, so they potentially, including the primary subject, they potentially just leave the environment anyways. Every single subject here is wearing the same color. Some aren't, but they are all having to leave if they're not able to go inside of this location. This base surface structure here is very large, and it's usually filled with more subjects. But this time, I'm sensing that this time it's very different. It's very important that the people nearby this location, it's very important that they get away from this location. Listen, the economics of this environment is changing, and it's like there's a person that specifically told everybody that they cannot be here for too long. I'm sensing it gets so chaotic that there's force, and the force upon these subjects is making a lot of people scared. And the force I sense it's not coming from the subjects that are wanting to get inside. It's coming from the subjects that are trying to block subjects from getting inside. I don't sense this has anything to do with military force. I sense that it just has to do with politics or some form of political reason why subjects can't go inside of this location. So all of these subjects have to leave, and they do.
All right, everybody, for our first pass here, we've got this semi-regular environment, and it seems like there is this landscape over here and a lot of structures. I'll put those in a different color. So structures that sort of line this area, and they seem to get a little more dense in certain pockets, but the structures seem quite scattered about this whole environment. So a lot of structures just sort of scattered around this area outside that is not encapsulated here. It sort of seemed a little wavier, the topography here, and at first sight it looked like water, but when I reached out to probe it, to touch it, to investigate further, it sort of felt mushy, like sand or maybe mud or something like that. I didn't really investigate further, so I'm mainly focused on something else that's actually happening inside the cluster of structures here, which is that there is a massive crowd of subjects that are moving through this urban area, and this massive crowd of subjects is meeting up with another group of subjects that seem darker, and they have more uniform attire on, and here I'll draw them in another color actually. And they seem far more aggressive, so it seems like an aggressive confrontation. So they're meeting another group of subjects. This other group of subjects is uniformed, and they are aggressive, and they have a confrontation. So let's investigate further. All right, so just to give another look, it seems like over here there's a bunch of subjects, and I'll just draw them as circle heads for a while, just for the ease of drawing. And if you're facing the mob, because it seems like there's quite a lot of them just sort of marching in a crowd, I guess a focused gathering, I guess you could call it that, but they all have these mean faces. They seem quite frustrated, just doing a collective deep mind probe of the area. I'm just sensing a lot of frustration, a lot of negative emotion, and just not feeling good. And there's some structures around, low-level structures, Yeah, so this sort of seems like one side of things, and you're seeing all these guys sort of marching and not feeling too happy about what's going on. Okay, now let's look right in another color. Let's look at the other side. So the other side seems to be another group of subjects, and we'll sort of let's take a new color here and draw a little dividing line right here. So this other group, they seem to have, let's draw this like that. Okay, so these guys are also very aggressive, and they seem like they have uniforms on, dark attire, dark hues to their attire, hard headgear on. They also are with a group of other subjects, so it's not just like 3 of them, there's a bunch of other heads behind them, but just in numbers wise, it seems like these guys outnumbered them. However, these guys are definitely far more aggressive. Let's just do a collective deep mind probe. Yeah, so I don't sense a lot of anger on this side. I do sense a lot of fury, if that can make sense. I mean, it's just a difference. These guys seem quite upset, but these guys seem quite fiery, but it's in a more ordered and contained way. So it's that's sort of just the difference in their psyche going forward, going into this. And it seems like there's just a lot of conflict. So I'll draw out a little bit of this conflict later on. All right, so basically I'm seeing a bunch of subjects over here. So these are the more uniformed subjects, and they're swinging these sticks or objects in their hands, and they're rushing these other subjects. And let's just put these sort of headgear bubbles around their head. So these are the people with headgear on their head. And then these subjects, I'll draw one of them on the ground because I did see one of them sort of on the ground. It looked like he was hit, so thwack, like this is a thwack moment. Bam. So this guy smacked this person, landed on the ground. I'm seeing a couple other subjects, and this is where the rest of the mob sort of is over that way. But it seems like everyone is running away. It seems like a lot of these people at this point where these two groups meet, this side, the one with more people, is not prepared for that level of violence. I mean, it's these guys really came in quite aggressive, and these guys are sort of backing off at this point. So that just seems to be what I'm seeing at this moment in this scene at this target. One final thing to note, the aggressive subjects that had the headgear on, let's just see if I can draw a couple of them over here. All right, so these subjects with the headgear on, and they're marching and swinging the batons and stuff like that. They look like they're in uniforms and they're quite serious. There's some structures behind them, and I did see in my peripheral in one instance a poof of smoke and a subsequent boom sort of radiating out afterwards. So it sort of seemed like maybe there could be some energetics as well that goes on at the scene. So that is the final bit of data that I have to add to this target, that potentially there is some energetics that also happens perhaps explosively elsewhere in this environment.
My first visual for this target is of a densely populated urban area with irregular topography, so somewhat rolling hills in the background. Lots of structures and multiple subjects. And these subjects are both inside the structures and outside. I'm also picking up some non-surface structures, and these are multiple non-surface structures, somewhat shaped. Honestly, like just human crafts. The subjects in these non-surface structures look somewhat militant. They're wearing green, and they kind of have hard hats. And something else I'm picking up is what looks like subjects in round, it looks like parachutes, and there's multiple of them. So this is a very dynamic, it's a very dynamic target. That's a subject right there. This is kind of like a balloon-shaped item, and they're just slowly drifting down. And like I said, many subjects. And there's a lot of man-made smells. Subjects everywhere. The sounds in this area, it's very loud. There's a lot of, it seems like a very hectic environment. I'm picking up a lot of popping sounds, shouting sounds, somewhat like, it also sounds like shooting sounds. Probing these subjects, the subjects themselves feel very angry. Like the whole overall energy that's going on here is not a peaceful energy. It's very hectic. Man-made smells in this area, it kind of smells like food. And something else that's interesting is I can see subjects on top of the buildings. Oh, sorry. Use a different color to call these out. So you can see multiple subjects because they're everywhere. And right here, I can kind of see subjects as well. So this kind of resembles a balcony. So these subjects look like casual observers. It's these subjects down here that are engaged in a lot of activity. So the more I keep probing this target, I actually see more of the balloon type structures that are drifting down. And I deducted war zone just because of the popping sounds. And when I follow the popping sounds, I see there's a lot of energetics in this target, a lot of energetics. And it's not only in one point of this urban environment, it's they're emanating from quite a lot of points. So like in the back, you can see like a fiery explosion emanating a lot of heat. Probing deeper into the non-surface structure, just to explain exactly what I'm seeing and the kind of subjects that are in there. Like I mentioned, it's they look very militant. Like they look like they're uniformed. They're wearing green. So this subject in here, he's looks like a regular person. The texture of his clothing is very stiff. There's kind of patterns on his shirt, kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, so I guess the drawing will have to do. a male subject, and when I touch his head, it feels like there's a hard hat. So it's kind of round and it's hard and somewhat looks like that. So this is the subject in here. And it's not, you know, there's multiple subjects and most of them look pretty much like him, very, very similar. As I keep probing this environment, I notice that more subjects come into the picture. There are multiple, just more subjects that come in. And these subjects that arrive are kind of holding items. They're in this kind of stance. So a lot of them. So with a similar objects on their hands that are long and hard objects. Vehicles also arrive here. So there's something that looks like a truck. It's a very wonky looking truck, but get the idea. And this is a hot environment, since I forgot to mention that. It's very, very warm. Pretty close near this target, there's also a pretty large body of water. So to give you a bird's eye view of what this target looks like, there's the, here, I'm running out of space. There's the irregular topography with the rolling hills, multiple structures close together. And then the body of water is somewhere here, and it's pretty large. Then you can also, I can also pick up, like from that angle, I can pick up the crafts. Oh, and not to forget the energetics. A lot of energetics. Like I said, multiple parts of this. And this is a pretty large urban area because the buildings are pretty close together and they're sprawled out in this environment. And yeah, as I look, I'm seeing the water and then just the glowing of these explosive activities that are going on. So whatever is going on here, it's not great. The subjects seem like they're pretty stressed out, obviously. And I'm also picking up two different groups that look different. Of course, there's these guys who are descending, and there are the subjects that are on the ground. So just to get a little deeper into this, I'm going to do a collective deep mind probe on all the subjects. This collective deep mind probe is bringing up a lot of feelings of anger within the subjects. There's a lot of anger. The subjects feel like whatever is happening here is very unfair. I'm picking up some sort of power struggle between these two groups of subjects. I'm also sensing something to do with leave things as they are. Like the subjects who were originally here want things to be left as they were. And because there's some sort of interference. There's a lot of suffering here, a lot of suffering. And this is the kind of things that remote viewing makes you feel. It's not always nice. A lot of the times it's not nice, but it's good to bring these things to the surface. moving to the target event, gonna deep mind probe one of these subjects. Again, this brings up a lot of oppression. There's a lot of suffering that's happening both mentally and physically. It seems like there's one group of people that has come in and is wanting to oppress, and there's another group that is being oppressed, and there's a power struggle between these two groups.
Okay, so let's draw some conclusions from these data. October 2021 is going to be an interesting month. 2 sessions involve a violent event in an urban area, possibly a major riot or protest. This may be related to another story where a large group of angry people are trying to unsuccessfully enter a large structure. And this may also be connected to another session involving prisoners being held and possibly tortured in box-like cages. The final story is a serious cold weather event that is unusual for the area where it happens. Interesting month. We will just have to wait and see what actually happens for the month of October 2021. We don't have long to wait. So, that is it for our October 2021 edition of Farsight's Human News, the news before it happens. Thank you for watching. Please also join us next month in November 2021 for another look into the future of Earth humans. Also, on farsightprime.com, be sure to look out for our next major mysteries project, Lucifer, our live stream events, the Farsight ET News, where the focus returns to the moon, the intelligence briefings, as well as new Farsight economic forecasts. And remember, we do Farsight at Farsight. Farsight is our style of remote viewing, and vocabulary is important in these changing times. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight. Stay ahead of the curve. Let the mainstream fade in the dust. Be there now.